So first of all, what is gut reset and what is the procedure? And so let us go into why there is a lot of connection between the gut and the mind. So actually, the gut is also called as the second brain. That is because the bacteria and the gut they produce the amino acids we use to make our neurotransmitters. So whenever the gut is disturbed, the bacterial flora is disturbed, then we get all sorts of behavioral issues and sometimes repetitive behaviors and sometimes tantrums. All these things can happen, and there is a lot of role that plays in the all the symptoms of autism. So this the main what do you call the main uh, pathway is the DNA methylation, which plays an important role in controlling the intestinal homeostasis and differentiation, maintenance of the structural integrity of the gut mucosa also. So what happens if there is any problem with the DNA methylation pathway? All the gut homeostasis, that is the gut bacterial alteration can occur. The gut mucosa can get damaged and cause a leaky gut syndrome, and also uh, there can be malabsorption where you whatever you eat or whatever vitamins and minerals may not be properly absorbed, and so you may get some of those deficiencies, and sometimes these deficiencies cause a lot of neurological problems, all these behavioral issues and all. So one of the most important processes is the DNA methylation. So it also important for immune modulation and the protection against the infection. So the methylation cycle that helps us to operate both physically as well as mentally. So include their functions include nervous system, cardiovascular system, immune system, as well as energy production, heavy metal detoxification, and hormonal imbalance. So just because of this gut problem, you see there are so many systems affected and so many things happening in our body. So that basic when you put that basic mechanism to be corrected, so many other things fall in place. So first of all, so anything is again related to our diet, and that is why when I say in my treatment, the diet is very very important, extremely important, and since autism is not because of one particular cause. There are so many contributive factors from environment and other things. So we also should approach the treatment in a multi approach. Like it should be we should attack it from all other places. It is not like we just do a therapy, occupational therapy, behavior therapy. No, the only one type of treatment does not affect the autism. That is the main thing to understand. We have to do a multi approach. So where we have to follow the diet, we have to follow the therapies. We might have to give so many vitamins and folates, all these things, uh, mainly because their gut is not absorbing properly, and also we might have to supplement all these which are deficient. We will have to look at their deficiencies, and sometimes they may have their gut is disturbed, so they may have a lot of allergies or intolerance. So we should look at that and actually customize it to every patient. But these tests are quite costly, so I don't ask everyone to do the test who can afford. They can do, and I choose some of them so that I get a big picture of what might be deficient, and then in those patients who can't afford. So that has some limitation because it is very cost prohibitive, all these tests. So and again, there, there should be a fine balance between the whatever you do for methylation, and sometimes what happens, super methylation can occur, and you have to sort of balance it. So, so for balancing the methylation, we give zinc, vitamin D, folates, vitamin C, etc. So, the big three microbial byproducts that impair the methylation, they are phenols, which come from plants and bacteria. So gut will produce a lot of phenols if there is an overgrowth of the bacteria. So we don't have, actually we don't measure the gut, you know, measure what amount of bacteria is there, is there overgrowth. We don't know anything, but we take these probiotics and prebiotics. So you just read in the internet, and when you don't know the fine things about these things, what happens is that you end up maybe giving more of the probiotics and sometimes the prebiotics, which may actually sometimes harm. But so you have to understand each patient before doing any type of treatment, because all patients are different. In autism, that is the biggest challenge. All children are different, and when you look at their behaviors, uh, gradually you will come to know, okay, this is more or this is less in this children. When they act differently, we come to know that this is probably the reason why he's behaving like this. So so the phenols, they come from the bacteria, and sometimes when there is a small intestinal overgrowth, then the body cannot detox the stress hormones and estrogens very well. Then the second one is aromatic amino acids. These are produced by the gut bacteria only, and they are necessary for the proper brain and nervous system. So if there is an overgrowth of bacteria, and if there is a gut infection, for example, then there is increased production of adrenaline, dopamine, and serotonin. So these are the neurotransmitters we have in our brain. So the more bacteria we harbor in our bodies, the more aromatic amino acids we will produce. So if we have too much of these, like tyrosine, phenylalanine, we can end up with too much of adrenaline and dopamine. The third one is aldehydes and alcohols, and these are produced by what? These are produced by the yeast, such as Candida. They produce these toxic molecules which are similar to aldehydes, and so they actually compete with the other aldehydes in our body. So they can cause DNA damage and inhibit the methionine pathway, so which is required for recycling of homocysteine. And the homocysteine is one of the thing which actually is an amino acid which is required for brain function. So there is excess, there can be damage. So, so these are the mechanisms by which how the gut is related to the brain, and anything that goes wrong in the gut, then it will also affect the brain. So alcohol also causes loss of zinc, magnesium, vitamin D. So you know, in alcoholic people, not I'm not saying that the children are taking alcohol or something, but the alcohols are produced by different mechanisms in the body. So when you look at the alcoholic people, just for comparison, they suffer from the B12 deficiencies, and there is some type of encephalopathy that occurs in these patients. So that also is by that you can understand. So there are a lot of things, how the alcoholics behave when they are in that sort of encephalopathy, and the children who behave in autism. There might be a little bit similarity in that. Again, leaky gut is one of the very important culprit, and leaky gut is mainly the biggest culprit. What the researchers show is gluten and dairy. So this gluten and dairy, they damage your intestine, and what happens is that once they get damaged, there are certain products which leak into the uh, your blood-brain barrier, and which are not supposed to go into that. And these products, they act as a opium-like effect. They might have, and they also act as toxins. So when you eat gluten, it triggers the production of zonulin. Okay, and so which causes these. There are some, in the in the mucosa of the intestine, there are certain small barriers. Okay, so it is just like something passing under the table. Okay, and they open up when uh, there is a normal mechanism of opening up, which only allows certain sized particles. But when the damage occurs, there are other things that also goes into the, like candida, parasites, all these kind of things, toxins can go into the brain. So that is why the gut mucosa, it should be normal, absorption should be normal, and also the flora should be normal. All these things together make the whole gut profile. And so anything happens with any of these, and these are all so much interrelated, like it goes like a vicious cycle. So one is affected, then the other is affected, then the third one is affected, and so the whole system gets affected. So the treatment for gut healing, uh, so we have to correct all these things. So the best thing to do, so how would you identify is there a gut problem or not? First, let us go to that. uh, so any upset, so some of the children with autism I have seen, they have a lot of gas problem, bloating, constipation is one important. Although constipation in autistic children is not due to actually per se constipation, it is mainly because of the sensory problem. They fail to go to the sit on the toilet or something, and so that might they hold the stool. So that might be the cause. But when there is constipation, all the toxins are reabsorbed into the body. So that is not good. So always the constipation should be treated. And diarrhea, or I see a lot of kids who a lot of parents who complain that as soon as my child eats, he goes to the potty. So that is an indicator that the child the digestion is not taking place properly. So these are some of the skin allergies, skin irritation, sleep disturbances. One of the major thing in autism, we get a lot of sleep problems, and these sleep problems are also due to the unhealthy gut, skin irritation, food intolerances, and food allergy. Maybe it could be just secondary. Some of the things have, some of the infections has made our body fight against our own body. So then there is a lot of autoimmune conditions or for food intolerance, which we had been tolerating probably, now they are not tolerating, or there can be ups and downs like that. So that is why we should have some, like you have asked, that what should be done, what tests need to be done before starting the biomed. So, and like there are procedures like cleaning of the gut, but usually that can be done naturally also, and that can be done with medications and vitamins and probiotics also. So there are various mechanisms by which you can cleanse the gut. So the most common is like the natural ways. You can give turmeric and uh, what do you call, probiotics. Then you can give uh, you can check for food intolerance and avoid that diet. Follow a specific diet according to the child's allergy pattern and the food intolerance pattern. So those are the things, how to actually heal the gut. And so you have asked how many, what is the timeline for gut healing? I see your question there. So the timeline, actually, if I want to say the timeline, there is no fixed timeline actually. Why? I'll tell you that also. Because for the gut to be proper, we prescribe a particular diet. And quite a lot of times, what happens is that this diet is not followed very strictly. Just follow it, yeah, but then sometimes you give some of those things which are not supposed to be given. So what happens is that, let's say, for example, gluten and dairy is the most common thing which we avoid, even soy and sugar, all these things. So let's take one example like dairy or gluten. When you keep on eating this, what happens is that it keeps on damaging your intestine, and all the time your intestine is malfunctioning and malabsorption occurs. So what happens? Should I switch to Hindi? Is everybody able to?
Um, and
Yes,
though we
ma'am,
can
we are
understand
able
you,
to hear
yeah.
you.
Yeah,
I'm
however, I think switching to Hindi, I'm not sure, but yeah, it'll be okay for me, ma'am. Maybe you can
yeah.
ask them.
It's okay. Everybody is able to understand, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. So every time you give a toxic thing into your body, into your child's body, every time it causes injury. So every day there is some injury occurring in the intestine. So what happens? The intestine does not get any time to heal. Okay, the intestinal healing अगर healing होना है तो ये जो डैमेज जो रोज रोज इसके कारण होता है वो बंद करना पड़ेगा, right? So when you stop that, then only the gut can heal by its natural process, and then only the absorption will become proper. And once the absorption becomes proper, whatever you supplement, whatever medicines you give, then only it will be effective. Are you getting me? Right? So what
Yes,
happens?
ma'am.
You, for example, you, okay, wait a second. Let me put on my, I think so I'll just put on my earphones and see if that is better. Okay. Can you hear me? Is it
Yes,
better
ma'am,
now?
it's better now.
Yeah.
Now it is very
Okay.
much clear.
Okay. Great. Great. So whenever somebody prescribes a diet according to your child's allergy pattern or food intolerance plus the gluten-free diet, casein-free diet. So what happens is that if you are following very strictly, then only all these things can be, all this recovery or all this improvement can happen. If you are not following strictly, you cannot expect the treatment to be effective, because if the intestine is not absorbing properly, whatever vitamins and food you are prescribed, whatever vitamins and even the probiotics, all these things, that will not be absorbed properly. Only maybe half of it may be absorbed. So you will not get the full effect of the uh, treatment, whatever treatment you are getting. So that will not take into full effect unless you follow it very strictly. So that is why you have ups and downs in the improvement. I see a lot of parents complaining that okay, he was doing very good and then suddenly he's more hyperactive or something. And then I again check with them what all diet they gave. Sometimes it is like a birthday party or sometimes a Christmas party or something, and they might have taken a piece of cake, and the piece of cake contains all the amount of gluten and sugars also. So that is why. And then I tell them like, this is why the child has become more hyperactive now. So so that is why.
So for the
So very
same
strictly
thing,
to be,
there was a question by a parent that when we say that we have to follow the diet 100%, so we are
yeah,
following the diet like no sugar, no carb, no gluten. Um, but in that case, if we
yeah.
give
So
the supplements which contain also some sugar, so does that also impact the gut somehow, or
yes, that
it is
does,
okay?
but yeah, it does impact a little bit. Especially the syrups and all contain sugar, so that might cause some hyperactivity. And if you are giving in the tablet form, it may not be that much of a problem. But sometimes what happens is the children don't take these tablets or capsules or whatever, and then we might need to give them in the syrup form. And sometimes the syrup forms are better absorbed, and that also sometimes improves certain. And some parents say that the syrup was better, and when I changed to the, when their hyperactivity is not subsiding, I probably changed to some tablets or capsules, and they say that no, the syrup was better for his behavior and eye contact and everything. So I said okay. So it depends on how you prescribe, depends on a lot with the child, individualize with the child. So
Okay,
so
ma'am.
for example, if you have been following very strictly diet for 2 months, okay, and then you again give even a little bit, that causes the damage. It sets off the damage process. So and then again flares can occur. So what happens is that the whole 2 months you have been doing so much, that goes into a waste, and again the gut becomes damaged, and all these things has to. And when the gut needs to heal, usual time is like 2 to 4 weeks, and some of them say that it can take even 2 years. So there is no consensus on that, but usual healing period for our tissues in the body is 2 to 4 weeks. And especially mucosa also heals quickly. So if you really take care of the diet, you are going to see a lot of improvement. Okay.
Okay,
And what
ma'am.
else?
Next is detox, ma'am. How important is detox and how we can do it more in natural way?
How
Because most of
important
the
is the?
parents thought that detox supplement always cause negative effect like die off.
Yeah. So natural way is also there, but we natural way we can't quantify. The thing is that how much you have to take that natural thing. We don't have a milligram or a quantity, how much quantity that is there in that, the active content, how much active content is there in that. So when you take natural things, we are not sure whether we are giving the appropriate dose. And when you take the particular milligrams or whatever, you have these supplements which are particular milligrams is there, then you know how much exactly you are giving, and then it is easier to bring it down, or increase the dose or decrease the dose. So so in a way both can work, but sometimes initially to start with the supplements is better rather than the natural things. Natural things you can do, but you may not get the desired effect altogether, because we are not knowing how much the content of each thing is. So the natural ways are like you can give garlic, ginger, lemon, coconut oil, turmeric, green tea, apple cider. These are all things which cause cleaning of the gut in the natural way. They help to produce the gut bacteria, some of them. And the diet also helps in a way that it does not destroy the good bacteria. So
Ma'am, is jeera water is also good for detox?
jeera water is also, all these bloating things and all, for that it is good. So,
Okay, ma'am.
yeah.
We will move to the next
So,
slide.
yeah,
This is all related to the speech. So parents are very worried about the speech and language development. So there are many things like B12, then ADHB12 or folinic acid. So
yeah,
basically everyone is confused at how to start. So everyone says that first we have to heal the gut, detox the
yes.
body, and then we should go for the speech. So
Then we,
can it be,
no,
can it
the
be,
speech therapy, you are saying speech
no,
therapy.
no, no, ma'am. We are talking about the speech supplements.
Yeah, there is nothing like speech supplement, first of all. These all supplements work together in a way that it improves our neural pathways. So it is nothing, one is particular for speech or anything like that. There are certain supplements which are improving they are called neurovitamins, which improve the neural system. Some of them improve the connections in the neuron or how they activate it. Some of them prevent the gut, the gut things. So the demethylation process, all these neurotransmitter, how they are made, so the gut thing, so everything together makes up all these things, and there is nothing specific. But I have seen like one product, very, I can say with confirmation that is very important for speech is DMG, because whenever I start DMG, the child starts picking up speech. So that is one specific thing I have noted. But other than that, B12, folate, all these things are in general good for all the cognition, decreasing the hyperactivity, decreasing the sensory systems. Everything works. Okay.
Ma'am, for DMG also there was a question that if a child has methylation issues,
Huh.
so like some kids does not respond to the methylfolate. So in that
DMG
case,
is not methylfolate.
yes,
It is
ma'am.
dimethylglycine.
Yes. So in that case, like there were few things like MTHFR mutation or something like that. So there are multiple questions based on that. That if the gut is not healed, we should go for ADHB12 and folinic acid instead of methylfolate or any other
Anyway,
type of
when you are
methyl.
giving DMG causes a little bit of hyperactivity also. So whenever you are giving DMG, you should always supplement with methylfolate or folinic acid, both are same, along with DMG and B12 also. We don't supplement folate alone. So that is why always B12 and folate is together given. So that has to be supplemented with that only, methylfolate and B12. So then
So
that
DMG can be given without any test, like DNA methylation test or something.
no need to do any test,
Okay, ma'am.
because though some of the tests which are done depends on so many other processes. So we can, even if we do this test, we may not still be sure that it is due to DMG or not.
Okay, ma'am.
So how do you know that the gut has healed? That was another question. So mostly when your gut heals, there are a lot of symptoms that improve. Your digestive issues like bloating, fatigue, headache, all these things improve. Your sensitivity goes away. So quite a lot of sensitive issues vestibular sensitive, spinning, flapping, all these go away. And the skin, any skin issues are there, that clears up. Eczema, dandruff, rashes, all this acne, if there are there, they clear up. Improvement in your autoimmune lab markers may be there, and antibody levels may go down. And the thing is that the child improves, and he is more aware of the surroundings, more attentive, and his mood is also improved, less of tantrums. So when you see all these things, you know that your gut health is becoming okay. And somebody had asked role of prebiotics and probiotics. So the thing is, the what are the good probiotics which you can give? That is mainly lactobacillus and bifidobacterium, and Saccharomyces boulardii is one which is for the fungal this thing. So high quality, multi-strain, high potency probiotics should be used, and you don't need to take a prebiotic for the probiotics to work. And but sometimes prebiotic may need to be given in large amounts, and sometimes what happens, the other bacteria can also overgrow. So side effects of the prebiotics can be bloating or discomfort when you have to give large doses. So you can give prebiotics in a smaller dose, and you don't really need prebiotics for probiotics to act. Probiotics alone can also be given. So what tests are done to check the gut health? Do you want me to answer that?
No,
There
ma'am.
are a
We
lot of
can
tests.
move to the
Yeah,
speech.
there are a lot
Can
of
you see
tests.
my screen?
No, I can't. I think I am seeing all the. Yeah, now I can. Can you enlarge that screen? Okay. Yes, now it's fine. So sensory issues, you want, okay. That is the one you want me to answer, or which one? So just quickly, what are the, how do you check the gut health? So there are some methods which are advanced type, fast type, and you can actually, if your doctor prescribes those tests, you can do it. But again, with the symptoms also, we can know that the gut is healing. So turnaround time for the gut microbes is 4 to 8 weeks. So it takes about 4 to 8 weeks after starting the probiotics. So then there are a lot of tests, super gut profile, and all these things. Diet, how to know which is good for, should I answer that? I already told, I think that should be customized for every child, because definitely gluten free and dairy would be one thing which does not change, but other things like that you can actually combine with the food allergy, food intolerance, and customize it to the child. Speech, okay, let's come to
Yeah,
the
ma'am.
speech.
Yes, few questions were related to apraxia and dyspraxia.
Yeah,
So is there any scope of uh, treatment of
okay.
apraxia in biomed?
So like I was telling, the speech, for the speech to get improved, you really have to start very early intervention. Very early you have to start all these things, like especially before the age of 3. I'm not saying that after the age of 3 they don't improve, they do improve, but the percentage of children who improve, that becomes less. So anytime, the whole recovery thing happens, mainly depends on the how early you have started all these interventions. And it is not like all these interventions means, people say that yeah, we started on therapy and it's still nothing is happening. So as I said, just therapy, or just supplements, these are not the, these type of treatment does not work. We have to do a, multi approach. All things should be done at the same time, then only we will get the results of like a recovery. Otherwise they will show improvement, but full recovery won't be possible. So biomed can help with speech or language, the whole treatment with diet, multivitamins, omega-3, probiotics, and therapies. All this together, and if there are any toxins, you have to remove the toxins and do chelation therapy. Then only the whole thing going together. Then only the speech and language development. There is like no particular sort of for the speech. So everyone to everything together will improve this everything, like speech and language development. So uh, so that is, again, especially the kids who are non-verbal or limited speech, which supplements help the speech, that's what you have asked. So in those, omega-3 neurovitamins, all these neurovitamins, B6, B12, methylfolate, uh, all these are neurovitamins, and DMG especially with methylfolate and B12 are actually very helpful. Uh, it's not like one of them acts on that. These all are your methylfolate, folinic acid, MB12, everything is important. So, and you don't need to do a FRAT test, because FRAT test is only tell you about if there is any folate receptor antibodies. But if the mechanism of folate deficiency is not because of the antibodies and not because of autoimmune phenomena, then it will show a negative test only. So you really don't require, you just have to do it empirically. Why
Okay, ma'am.
some kids are non-verbal until 5 or 6 years of age and few only have need-based speech? How biomed can help with that? So as I told you, until 5 to 6 years, if they don't, they are non-verbal, means they did not get the whole treatment. That is the thing. And the diet may not have been strict. So speech will come sometimes and speech will go. And the other thing, when what people, they have a very understanding vocabulary, but they don't express. So we have to actually push them to express right from the beginning. Okay. So right from the beginning, we have to, what happens is that when the child is autistic and they are very small, the parents will do everything for the child. And what happens is that the child will not ask anything unless he has the need to say it. Okay, so if you are feeding correctly in time, if you are giving water in time, and the child, indicates by just some actions, and you give the water, then the child does not need to say anything. So you are not allowing the child actually to ask for anything. So then the speech will not develop. So the first thing what develops is like some sort of echolalia, where in which they only talk what they are interested in. The second stage is like, if you force a little bit, they will ask for certain things, like which is need based. For that you have to train them. The speech comes like that, so naturally it's not like that. You have to really train them, and you have to really make them speak. So you have to say that if you don't say, I will not give this thing. Little bit, some children may go into tantrums. I'm not saying that you have to make them go into tantrums, but you have to somewhat balance it and try it that way. So when the speech improves, the speech should improve by at least, after the treatment, at least speech is something which is last to regain everything about speech. So it is the last one. All the other symptoms improve earlier than the speech. So the speech improvement usually takes around 1 to 1.5 years to get into the full speech. And apraxia. So let me tell you about apraxia. Apraxia is something a little bit different from autism. Apraxia occurs because they can't do sequencing, and it is probably due to some, you know, connectivity in the neurons, and plus there is also processing problem in the brain itself, and that can occur in some damage to the brain during the birth, or hypoxia, hypoglycemia. All these things can lead to that. Uh, but apraxia can be associated in autism also, but that we have to find whether it is apraxia or because they are not able to understand that. Again, when speech is not coming, you have to also rule out certain other things, like whether they have understanding, or whether they have any intellectual disability, or any associated more of attention deficits. So you have to look at all these aspects to know whether the speech is affected because of all these things. Suppose the child is very hyperactive, not at all attentive, then you might need to give him medicines to make him more attentive and sit at one place for the speech. Otherwise, whatever treatment you give for speech therapies, everything, that will not be effective. So that is why I tell, like, wherever there is a need for medicines, we have to give medicines. It's not that medicine is a no. It's not like that. You have to give medicine at such particular in particular circumstances, because, for example, if you are giving uh, any therapy, like, if you want make the child learn, that means the child has to be attentive, the child has to sit down and listen. And if he's not doing that, you will require 10 times the effort. If you are giving some medicine, if all these things improve, then you require only a minimal effort. So what happens is, when you are not help, these medicines are actually to help them a little bit with the attention, with the surroundings, being aware of the surroundings and everything. So sometimes, mainly the parents, when they come to me,
quite a lot of them, they say we don't want to give medicine. But your doctor knows that when the medicine should be prescribed. So you should actually give medicines when your doctor is saying he needs a medicine, because one thing they are going to improve. There are side effects of medicine, I don't say that they are not, but every child behaves in a different way, and or same medicine does not affect all the does not give results with all the children. So we in any of these medicines which are related to mind, brain, everything, so these are medicines which has to be quite individualized. It cannot be like blanket type of thing. So usually it's like more of a trial and error, because if this, we don't know which child will sort of, it doesn't suit some child, it does suit some child. So with every medicines, uh, we have a thing called paradoxical reaction. Paradoxical reaction means for what it is given, it will show the exact opposite effect. Like for example, if it is to prevent hyperactivity, it may increase hyperactivity. That is called paradoxical effect. So all these medicines have that. So upfront we tell them that there are this, and if we show some sort of these type of things, we will stop the medicine. We don't need to continue with those medicines. The main thing is that you come back to your doctor and tell that my child is not reacting properly to this medicine, and he will change the medicine. So we have to actually individualize even the medicine for every child. The best medicine is definitely risperidone, which suits almost like around 80% of the children, but 20% may not respond to it, and we might need to give some other medicines for that. And that is the importance of medicine, what I have been telling you, because it avoids a lot of frustration also, and that shorten the time of recovery, and it shortens, and if you follow the diet and all this properly, it also reduces the dosage of drugs. So we require very, very low dose in this when you are following biomed plus everything. All this together, if you are following, you don't require any medicine. We only very minimal which is by psychiatrists and all, who start with a very high dose, or even some of the children with low dose may react. So, and they become like zombies. They become very lethargic and sleepy, and then the parents get scared. So if it is in the right dose, we should tell the parents that you have to observe for this and give them the confidence to stop the medicine when you see this reaction. Then I think most parents will agree for a treatment with the medicine. So apraxia, again, let's come to that. Maybe together with autism, apraxia is also that can happen. So in that case, all the treatments of autism has to be done. But if it is just apraxia and it is not autism, then probably you may need only like omega-3, vitamin E. Vitamin E is supposed to be good for apraxia, and other vitamin B12 and stuff, D and G. So these are more helpful. And the next question, does CBD oil help with speech? So CBD oil is something which has come up for the treatment for anything and everything in the world. And so also autism. So it is in the recent times we have seen CBD oil, but I would have caution using the CBD oil. We don't know much about how much dosage should be given. It is all in the research state. So unless there is something solid coming up, we get a lot of reports. All these reports which are contradicting one another. Some children have good effects, some children do not have. and we don't have a really good evidence-based thing on CBD oil, but there are children who they say have improved. So I actually do not give CBD oil to any of my children, and it's not very easily available in India also. But I have read about people, parents who have in US who have given CBD oil, and in US also some of the states don't. There is a restriction, so they move to certain other states and start giving, and all these things are happening because people are so frustrated and so they're ready to do anything. So that is also one reason why things like these happen. So another question: kids who don't understand even a single word, do they improve? Okay, now when you are asking if the kids don't understand even a single word, I think there is some sort of misunderstanding in that statement itself, because the children who do not speak does not mean that they don't know the words or they don't understand. Their understanding power in autism is quite high actually. And they are not born with mental retardation. That is the first thing to note. So if they don't understand even a single word, if you say, then there should be something else with autism. There should be either intellectual disability associated with that, or there should be some other syndromes associated with that, which causes them to, all this sequencing and all these things they can't do, processing they can't do. So, or some learning disability is there along with that. Then only the autistic children don't understand anything, you can say. Otherwise, usually 90% of the autistic children, they have a very good understanding. Now, even if they know the words, they don't say it. Unless they are in need so much, then only they will say. So for example, like a child is, for example, sitting and very much disturbed by some sound, or you are talking and the child is very much disturbed, then probably he will just, this child who was not speaking at all, he might suddenly say, can you please shut up? So this is a whole sentence he can say. So it is not that the child does not have a vocabulary. He knows the words, but he doesn't use the words to communicate. That is what happens in autism. It's not speech defect, it is the communication defect. So we need to check whether he has another LD problem or severe hyperactivity in attentions that he's not understanding. You feel that he's not understanding even a single word because he's not attentive. He does not want to attend to those things. And is it true after 6 years of age, the development really slows down and chances of recovery are very low? That is true, because early intervention is the only thing which gives us full recovery. And after 6 years, it really slows down. But some improvement definitely will be there if you do something. Treatment, if you do treatments, there will be improvements, but you can't get a full recovery. And it might be like a very few percentage may luckily get some full recovery. That is very few. The percentage really goes down actually. So,
Ma'am, there are
now,
question for krill oil also. Is krill oil helpful, or for the fish oils, how much DHA content
yeah.
should be given to the child? How we can decide on the quantity of the DHA?
So DHA and EPA, that ratio is more important than the total amount. But in children, small children and all, I would actually start with a lower dose, because when you are giving high dose, you actually stimulate the brain too much also. So you don't want that. So we can start with a lower dose in small children. Like initially, we at 2 years and all, we start with 200 to 300, and for children up to 3 years, we use like 500, and older children we can go up to 1,000, but don't go above 1,000. There is although there are literature suggesting more than 1,000, but I have not seen much difference, and actually some children have not done well with very high dose. So I would not go above 1,000.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you for this. And ma'am,
And
like
3
you
is
were
to 1
telling that
ratio of EP
okay,
and DHA should be maintained. 3 is to 1. EPA
3 is
should
to
be
1.
3 times the DHA. Yeah, that is very important. And
Okay.
also the content of DHA and EP in our body depends on various factors. So it's not totally dependent upon the dose we give. It is dependent on so many other things, gut microbiome and all those things. So that is why the importance of this combined treatment, comprehensive treatment is that is where it comes, because once you are not thinking about gut microbiome and then you are just supplementing only omega-3, then that will not work, because everything has to be done together. So,
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, like for diet, there was one question that
uh,
they did all the food tolerance test, and
uh,
there was no issue. So,
uh.
do they have to still follow the diet, gluten-free, dairy-free, this soy-free, and everything, or they can do the normal homemade food and they can go on for the supplements?
See, food intolerance, food allergy, these things, the results depend on where the test is done. And if you are not doing in a good lab, that your results may be screwed up also. So one thing, gluten and dairy definitely we should avoid, because those are very, very much implicated in the damaging this thing. But depending upon the soy and all, and what else you can do is that if that way, if you want to give something else also to your child which is restricted, you can actually make a diary, food diary, which I tell every parent to make a food diary. So whenever you give something which is restricted, you also will notice some behavioral change or something. So if you are noticing that, that means your child is child for your child this is not okay. So, but then what happens is that if suppose it was not to be like your child reacts to it, that means you are taking a risk actually, because and the gut will get damaged, and when the gut gets damaged, your 2 to 4 weeks is gone, because your gut will take that much time to heal. So we don't want to waste any time. That is why we just implement this DFCF initially, and once the patient recovers, we can restart, because some of the things would have changed, because your whole environment of the gut has changed because of your restrictions and probiotics and everything. So quite a lot of times there is a lot of recovery, and you can even some of the things you can even add. So one by one we will later on, and initially we do this total restriction and diet and everything, and also if there are air allergies we add into that, right?
Okay, ma'am.
uh, yeah, because we don't want to waste any time, because if the gut is damaged means most of the treatment becomes ineffective.
Okay, ma'am. And ma'am, there was one more question that everyone is very much concerned about the diet. When we are saying that we have to go gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free,
uh,
corn-free, sugar-free diet, so
huh,
we are also
huh.
eliminating few very important things like protein. If someone is vegetarian or is
No,
already a vegan,
that is why we are giving the extra vitamin supplements and proteins. Everything we suggest that.
okay.
Along with that, it cannot be like a diet without supplementation. That is why we give diet supplements. That is why we give vitamins. All the vitamins are supplemented.
And
And
ma'am, what about the
if you are
picky eaters? Like most often the kids are picky eaters. So if they are not eating anything, so do you think the supplements are going to do any harm than doing the good?
supplements, no, actually, in the picky eaters, actually supplements are going to do good, because they are not eating the normal way, right? So they will be deficient in so many things if they are picky eaters.
Okay.
So by giving supplements, you are actually providing all the other vitamins and supplements. So it is actually beneficial for them. But the only thing is, we have to actually treat the picky eating thing. And the picky eating in autism may be due to a lot of sensory issues. And once you start with the vitamins B12, neurovitamins, and the supplements, and the thing is proper, these picky eaters start taking the other things which they have not been taking. Because a lot of parents come and tell me after starting the treatment 1 or 2 months later, oh, they are chewing now and they are eating this food. They have never eaten that food, but now they have started to eat. They have started to eat vegetables. So actually, this picky eaters thing is due to a lot of sensory problems, and we have to see why. They may be having visual sensory because they don't like the sight of that food, or they may be having uh, a smell, a sensory over smell. So they may not be liking the smell of the food, or they may not be liking the texture of the food. Some children don't eat rice, but they eat all the crispy things to it very nicely, but they won't, eat rice. So that is probably because they don't like the texture of that, or how it feels in their mouth. We have to have to actually know our child why is this picky eating habit happening. And the other thing what I really tell every parent is that do not give food in front of the screen. That is very, very problematic, and that really damages the brain. So never give food. And what happens later on is that they won't eat without the screen. So if you make it a habit, because sometimes parents feel that they can push a lot of food into the mouth when they are seeing the screen because they are not aware. But that should never be done. And then they come into that habit, and then this picky eating thing and all this sensory mixing up happens. When you are putting a screen, there are a lot of sensory overload, and your taste, you're eating without knowing the taste, and what happens, all these impulses gets mixed in your brain. So that is why they associate some of the things with some of the scenes or colors or feelings like that, and that is why they become picky eaters later on.
Okay, ma'am. That makes sense. Ma'am, can we now take the questions from the chat? I'm sorry, we have already prolonged the session. There are many questions pending on the slide also, but if
Yeah.
we can answer a
So
few
which
questions
one
from the
you asked me the question, I'll answer
chat.
that.
Yes, okay, ma'am. Ma'am, there is one question. Fermented food, does it cause gut issues? Like we all know fermented foods are good. I mean, what we have been
Yeah.
learning since childhood. But
Yeah.
now when we are resetting the gut, or we are trying to heal the gut, when we are giving the probiotics, or when we are giving the
Ah.
fermented food like kefir or kombucha type of things, so we always see that there is some kind of reaction. It is die off, I don't know what it is, but is it
Yes.
allowed to give in the process of gut healing?
See, when there is a lot of issue in the gut, overgrowth of bacteria is too much, or the bad bacteria is too much. So when you replace that, there is a lot of eczema reaction is there. So initially, that means your child may worsen initially when you do that. Then about the fermented food is that the natural fermentation is okay, but the fermentation like we do with the yeast and all the yeast agent, then I don't actually say that you should use yeast. Yeast is actually not allowed in my diet, but like you see the dosha and idli things without any yeast, you can ferment it. That's natural fermentation. Some of the pulses also can get naturally fermented. So those type of things are okay. Natural fermentation where it occurs without any yeast or anything. That is allowed. But uh, you give yeast, then actually the gut flora again becomes different. So I don't add any yeast to that. So any good yeast is that Saccharomyces. Bulardi, which we give as a probiotic. That is the good one. But the bad ones in the fungal, yeast again, candida infection. So that again causes a lot of behavioral issues and self laughing and all those things.
So the natural things like kefir or something like that we should give or we should avoid.
I don't know, like kefir and all, they mix yeast in that, right?
No, ma'am. We don't mix the yeast in that. There are kefir grain. We just ferment it in the sugar and then give it to the child.
Isn't there some packet involved in that? Like where you have to mix those things?
No, ma'am. It's just the grains, which we buy from the shop, organic grains, and we just have to put in the sugar because the kefir live on the sugar, so they get multiplied, and then we can give the water. It is known as a probiotic drink, similar to kombucha.
Yeah.
So like there are
Yeah,
different things like kombucha,
yeah,
kefir,
different things.
kimchi.
Yeah, some salt or something like that. Yeah, there are a lot of things which is coconut oil, and also is good for fighting
Yes,
the
MCT oil is
candida.
also very popular these days to
So so I think that natural fermentation is okay, but
okay.
whatever, like you put the yeast which is bought from the store and make things with that, that is not okay.
Okay. Ma'am, there is one question which says that they were on B12 earlier. So when
uh,
they stopped B12,
mm.
the child is very sleepy now. So earlier it was not the case, but now after stopping the B12, is there any kind of adverse effect?
It's not like that. Probably the child does not produce B12 and needs
Okay.
a supplemental outside supplementation. So B12 is something which makes you alert and your neurons active. So
Okay.
Hi,
when you stop that,
Ma'am, in the blood test,
it's
it
my
was that
question.
B12 is fine. So does that mean that the B12 is not getting absorbed to the cells? That is why
yeah,
it is fine.
yeah. There are some very rarely, like the B12 receptors may not be working. That could be a congenital condition, very rare, but
Okay.
for example, like thyroid hormones, you find that sometimes the thyroid levels are all normal, but the receptor to which the hormones have to attach, they are not working. That's why their function is not happening. And they get all the features of the hypothyroidism. So that way, in our body, for everything, there will be, receptor which will, it will go and attach to that, and then all the other things happen from there. That could be one of the cause where this vitamin B12 is not acting. It is there in the body, but it is not giving that function. So end organ and receptor dysfunction is called. So it is very rare. Could be that in this child it was there, or and so that is why it might be happening. Or some antibodies are there which is destroying the B12. That can also be happening.
Okay. There is one more question related to the worm infection. So when we talk
Yeah.
about worm or yeast or parasite infections,
Yeah.
why it keep coming again and again? Is it due to the diet or it is the nature that the worms will come back again? So it's like what we have been hearing from the parents that they have to keep doing rounds of, cleaning the gut or cleaning the parasites or worms after 6 months. So is it true?
Yeah, every 6 months it should be done,
Okay.
because there is no foolproof way to actually prevent all these infestations. Your child goes into the mud, your child plays with other children. So these are things which cannot be totally prevented. So your child may get all these things, and once you do the deworming and all this stuff, the whole family should do it. Otherwise, from one person to other person, it gets reinfection. Again, if the child is having big nails, and the child, when the child sleeps, he keeps on, putting his hand into the anus and scratching it. All the, eggs of these worms will be there in the, and if the child eats with that hand, again reinfection occurs. So for that, like, you have to be very meticulous in hygiene, and you have to take a lot of precautions for no auto infection and all this, which is not very practical. Somehow they get these infections, and it is not just for autistic children. Autistic children are more prone because they are not generally aware of the hygiene. You have to instruct them, and those children who are normal, if you tell them that you have to, sort of wash their hands and all, they do it. But autistic children, they are not bothered about it, so sometimes they may not do it. So sometimes it's not always practical, so they get reinfection. So what I suggest is that 6 monthly you do deworming, anyhow.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you for that. Ma'am, there is one more question regarding regression. Is it possible that the
Yeah.
regression happens again and again, like every 2 months or every 3 months, the child is getting regressed?
Yeah. The regression usually occurs if the child fully recovers, then there is very less chance of regression after that. But the regression can occur when the child gets ill. Whenever a child gets sick, he is going to regress. His immunity drops down. His eating is different. He becomes a more picky eater. His nutrition is compromised when he is sick. And all these infections, viral and all, produce a lot of antibodies, change the immune system. Everything happens. And so with every infection, they are going to regress a little bit. That is normal. And and also if you change the diet, if you're not following the diet properly, and if you change the diet, change in diet also causes regression.
Okay, ma'am.
And if there is still recurrent regression, you should always do an EEG and MRI and metal toxicity test, because all these can cause further deterioration symptoms. Any change in the EEG, if it is like seizures, the seizures may not be like this type of seizure which you see in usual epilepsy, but it might be just if it comes from the temporal lobe or frontal lobe, it may just be as a behavioral symptom, like running about or crying or some behavioral alterations like that. So we may not know that the child is having any seizure. So it is always, if some regression takes place, it's, you can do an EEG. If there is already a sickness, that is the cause. But if there is no sickness and you are doing good diet, then you should do an EEG and MRI to see whether there is a progressive disease or not, or any metal toxicity, which is, again, if there is metal toxicity, you should do, the treatment is different, and you should be doing chelation.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much. Ma'am, last question. We will not take your so much time. We are already 10 minutes ahead of the time we have thought.
Yeah.
Aggression. Why kids are aggressive? Is it a sensory issue or something is happening in their brain? Sometimes the kids are very uncontrollable. Sometimes they go so wild that we are not able to control them. The hitting happens, the yelling happens.
Yeah. That is, the aggression mainly is because one is that if they are not able to express themselves, they get so frustrated that then it will they try to communicate in a way like showing aggression. So that is the most common one for aggression, because they are not able to express it, or you are not you are not understanding what he's trying to make you understand. So that is one cause, most common one. Second is the seizure. Seizure is one important cause of aggression. Like I said, the seizure may be just like an aggression or behavioral tantrum or like that, or a hyperactivity. So those without any cause they may start hitting. Those are all can be a type of seizures, temporal lobe seizures or frontal lobe seizures. So the other thing of for regression, for aggression is pain. Sometimes they may be in some sort of pain which they are not able to communicate, and it may not be like you may not even understand where he's having some irritation. For example, dental pain is something which is very severe, and they may not be able to tell you about the dental pain. And we also don't look for dental pain, whether there is any problem in the dentition. We also tend to overlook that. We Whenever there is something related to pain, we think of an ear infection or abdominal pain. But there is something, this dental pain is very severe, and actually that can lead to, whenever there is aggression, you should look for any pain in any area, or any swelling in the joints, or ears, dental this thing, any swelling in the gums and abdominal. These are things which usually are pain related. Sometimes it is headache and they are not able to do anything about it. And headache can also, and some of these children may have migraines, and that can also lead to aggression.
Okay,
Hello,
ma'am.
ma'am.
But like in the case of non-verbal kids who are not
Yeah.
able to tell any kind of pain, or they are not able
Yeah.
to tell their needs. I mean, the needs can be still guessed by asking
Huh.
this or that, but the pain when they are not able to communicate that, what can
Huh.
be done in that case? So that at least the aggression does not happen, it does not do the self-harming and not harm other people who are surrounded.
See, and also the aggression can be due to sensory overload also. That some sensory overload is happening, and the other people are not knowing about it.
Okay,
So,
ma'am.
for example, a child is in a place, and some child starts to cry, and that frequency of sound he is too much irritated with, and he may start aggression for that. So, and we will not know, because sensory overload will happen only to that child. We don't get that sensory overload feeling. So we might even not know why he's having this behavior. So it must be just a crowd which is having too much noise. That can cause a sensory overload, or some lights flashing can cause sensory overload, and we might not be looking, so we may not be knowing those things. And the child, some of those things, some of the sounds we hear, they hear, we may not hear, because there are some sounds which very minute sounds which they can hear, and we may miss those sounds, and we think why he's doing this. So sensory overload is one very important cause of aggression. We actually have to observe the child, what triggers are there, keep on observing for it cannot be diagnosed like in a one sitting or two sitting, that uh, you have to be with the child all the time to know that, sort of like the mothers who have these intuitions, like yeah, my child is having probably this. So that sort of thing has to be there. And sometimes you can check some of the sites where the pain can happen, or those type of, suppose the child is having cold, then ear infection is a common thing, so you can check, go to the ENT and get it checked. And sometimes abdominal pain, bloating, all these things can happen in these children, very common, because we are giving supplements, we are giving probiotics, we are giving so many things, and you know that may cause itself some sort of bloating and abdominal, because they are on so many supplements. So even that may be the cause. So it is very difficult to guess these things, but definitely we have to be searching for these things, because they won't be able to tell.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. And ma'am, overeating can be also due to the gut issues, or there could be any other reason? Like there
Overeating
are two
usually.
parents who have written that their child is overeating, and if they restrict, the child becomes wild, and like there is a behavior of
Okay.
pinching.
Are they
And
obese? Are these children obese?
sorry,
Are these children like obese?
no, ma'am, they have not written this. They have just written overeating, and if they restrict,
Okay.
yeah,
Uh,
the one
so
child is hyperactive
overeating.
and also overeating.
Yes, ma'am, they are obese actually.
Okay. So there is one condition called Prader-Willi syndrome, where the child may be having hyperphagia. So in those cases, if they have some global delay and some borderline intellectual issues, and very obese, then these children should be tested for Prader-Willi because they have hyperphagia, and also MRI can be done because sometimes some of the things in the brain structures may give rise to this type of they don't have the satiety. There is some signal which tells you to stop eating when you are full. That signal is not working in those children. So we should that is why we should is there any problem in the brain which is causing it? We should look at that.
All right, ma'am. Thank you so much.
हेलो
Okay.
हेलो
Hello. Yeah.
मैम
Tell
एक
me.
एक्चुअली मैं ये पूछना चाह रही थी कि क्या सभी ऑटिस्टिक बच्चों के लिए जीएफसीएफ ज़रूरी है? अगर आईजीए टीटीजी टेस्ट में ओके हो तो भी कराना है क्या जीएफसीएफ?
हाँ.
अच्छा, सभी
Because
के लिए कंपलसरी करना है।
सभी के लिए कंपल्सरी है initially. Yeah.
ओके मैम,
Because everything depends on that diet or gut. तो इसीलिए सबके लिए इनिशियली तो सबके लिए एम्पिरिकली ही स्टार्ट करते हैं.
ओके मैम, देन आईजीए टीटीजे इज फॉर व्हाट?
See, I actually don't, casein and gluten I always do, but soy, sugar also free because it causes hyperactivity. In those children, it doesn't cause hyperactivity. It may cause yeast infection. So, sugar free, casein and gluten free.
Okay.
As an empirical thing, soy free is not empirical. But some of them, if they tolerate, they can take, and they can also look at what their child is not tolerating. Sometimes apart from all these things, he might be tolerant to so many other things. So we have to look individually and decide, but definitely GFCF sugar free is for all children.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, it's Zagri is allowed in
Yeah, in small quantities. I would suggest, if with Zagri your child is okay, then probably you can continue.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I usually prescribe honey, organic honey. If it is available, you can use that. It is
Okay.
better than Jaggery.
Actually, we are not using honey. That's
Okay.
why.
No, I mean, it's an option. Like if because you cannot give sugar and sometimes the child may require some sweetness in some of his dishes. So, then I tell honey you can use.
Okay.
But
Thank
honey
you,
also
ma'am.
you should be careful in the sense that it should be organic and pure. Otherwise, it's only jaggery water only. Otherwise.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
Hello, madam.
Yeah.
Dates are little sweet, so can we give dates to our babies? Like sometimes they are craft for sweets. So can we make some?
Yeah, I actually allow dates, but it is not to be taken in huge quantities. Like 1 or 2 dates, up to 4 dates is fine.
So in a day he can take up to 1 or 2 dates of within
Yeah,
4.
yeah,
You're saying, right?
yeah,
So, okay,
yeah.
okay. Because sometimes when he's very frustrated and we want to make some positive reinforcement, so if we are not giving them chocolate, just I want to confirm that can we make small
Yeah, yeah,
date pieces as a
yeah,
chocolate and give it to them?
yeah, definitely, definitely. And then again, you should always look at your child how he reacts to it. maybe your child is okay with it and some other child may not be okay with it. So always test the reaction whenever you give something. You look for whether there is any sort of hyperactivity or anything change in his behavior. So if there is nothing, you can actually give that thing.
हेलो हेलो
हाँ,
मैम, वन टू वन कम्युनिकेशन भी डाइट से पॉसिबल है अगर GFCF फॉलो करें?
मतलब
एक्चुअली मेरे बेटे का स्पीच है, लैंग्वेज भी आ रहा है, लेकिन वन टू वन कम्युनिकेशन नहीं है। वो मिल्क प्रोडक्ट और शुगर उसको कभी दिया ही नहीं है। कोकोनट शुगर उसको देती हूँ, लेकिन वीट नहीं बंद किया, मतलब बस एक वही चीज़ है जो उसकी
वीट
डाइट
ही
में
तो
है।
मेन है, वीट ही तो मेन है, ग्लूटेन
ओके, मतलब हाँ, बस एक
वो
वही
तो
है,
बंद करना ही है।
वो ही करना है। उससे मतलब कम्युनिकेशन में इफेक्ट होगा, मतलब कम्युनिकेशन में आने के भी चांसेस हैं?
हाँ बिल्कुल,
ओके।
मीन्स
हेलो मैम।
जो भी चीज उस पर डिपेंड करता है ना। सो डाइट गट और ये सब एक साथ इतना इंटर रिलेटेड है कि हम
जी जी।
एक चीज करें और एक चीज नहीं करें तो वो भी असर नहीं होता है।
ओके मैम, जी जी जी, थैंक यू
हेलो
मैम।
मैम, क्वेश्चन ये था।
ओके,
मैम मेरा क्वेश्चन था कि मैंने
हाँ
अपनी डॉटर को
ओमेगा
ओमेगा
3
3 और
और
1.5 साल से दे, बट B12 मैंने उसको दिया तो काफी वर्स्ट इफेक्ट मेरे को दिखने लगे। तो मैंने मतलब अब B12 भी बंद कर दिए, कॉग्निकेयर भी बंद कर दिए, पर अब वो बहुत ज्यादा
बी
सोने लग
ट्वेल्व
गई है।
आपने जो B12 जो दिया,
हाँ
B12 जो
जी,
दिया वो इंजेक्शन दिया कि ओरल दिया?
नहीं ड्रॉप दिए। उसकी
कितना डोज
रिपोर्ट में
दिया?
B12 ठीक आया है। वो मैं डॉक्टर ने बोला था कि 2 ड्रॉप्स टाइम मॉर्निंग में देना और 2 ड्रॉप्स इवनिंग में देना है। तो
काफी हाई
वो
डोज का
मैंने दिया
होगा
है।
मुझे लगता है। आप हाई
हाँ
डोज
जी,
नहीं दो,
तो
250 माइक्रोग्राम से स्टार्ट करो तो ठीक
मैम
है।
मतलब मैं आपको बताऊं कि मेरी बेटी सब कुछ भूल गई, मतलब टॉयलेट ट्रेन थी, वो टॉयलेट भी बताना भूल गई, सब कुछ वो भूल गई। तो मैंने अब क्या है ना कि कॉग्निकेयर भी बंद कर दिया है और B12 भी बंद कर दिया है। बट अब कॉग्निकेयर बंद करने से क्या हो रहा है कि वो बहुत ज्यादा सो रही है, रात को प्रॉपर सोती है, सुबह उठती है, खाना खाने के बाद फिर वो बोलती है मुझे सुला दो। इतनी लेजी हो गई है
अच्छा,
वो,
तो
मतलब
आप
बिल्कुल
इसका
एक्टिव नहीं रही।
थायराइड चेक कर लीजिए आप।
मैं थायराइड मैंने चेक करवाया है, जो मोटा होने वाला जो थायराइड होता है उसमें जैसे 140 मैक्सिमम पॉइंट होता है, उसका निकला है 143। तो काफी लोग मुझे बोलते
हाँ,
हैं कि ये काउंट नहीं होता, 2% अगर आया तो इसको काउंट नहीं करा जाता। तो मीन्स इसको थायराइड है, मतलब इसको जो आया है तो थायराइड
थायराइड
इसका
से
माना
ये सब
जाएगा, इसका
चीज
आया
रिग्रेस
है
हो
थायराइड
सकता है।
इसमें।
थायराइड प्रॉब्लम से ये सारी चीजें रिग्रेस हो सकती है। एंड आपने शायद उस समय B12 दे दिया होगा तो आपको लगा कि B12 किस कारण हो गया, या B12 ने आपने हाई डोज दिया होगा, 2 ड्रॉप्स, मतलब कि वो काफी कॉन्सेंट्रेटेड वाला B12 होता है जो ड्रॉप्स में देते हैं। तो आपने अगर
अच्छा
250 से ज्यादा दिया है तो कई बार ऐसा इफेक्ट हो सकता है। बट इट इज, उसको ऐसा एकदम ही उसी के कारण है नहीं बोल सकते हैं। बट थायराइड वगैरह चेक करवा लो।
अच्छा अच्छा अच्छा, तो मतलब कॉग्निकेयर बंद करने की वजह से
कॉग्निकेयर
ये
बंद मत
लेजी
करो,
नहीं हुई है।
कॉग्निकेयर कंटिन्यू करो, बिकॉज कॉग्निकेयर से कुछ हुआ नहीं था, आपने 1 साल तक दिया तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं था ना।
हाँ
तो
हाँ
कॉग्निकेयर
जी,
से नहीं,
नहीं हुई थी,
कॉग्निकेयर
हाँ
आप
जी हाँ
कंटिन्यू
जी।
कर सकते हैं।
अच्छा अच्छा, ठीक है, थैंक यू मैम।
हाँ
All right, ma'am.
Okay,
We
ma'am.
already.
I had a question, ma'am.
हाँ, वो
Actually,
Yeah, go ahead.
ma'am, I had a question with my. I've got an ASD son.
हाँ
Okay, so he's like 7 years old.
हाँ
Now the only though he's improving a lot. Right now the one thing that's bothering me is that when he goes to urinate,
हाँ
the order is basically too much to basically ignore. I whenever he's urinating, though he's
हाँ
toilet trained a bit. But we
हाँ
find the order basically intolerable. So, are there any tests that you think that we may go for? It might is it basically indicating to some maybe some problems which we should have a look for?
You said that he's high frequency of urine
No, ma'am, he does not.
or the quantity of
No, ma'am. The order, the basically the smell. It smells really bad, ma'am.
odor. Okay,
Whenever
okay, fine, okay.
the order, ma'am. That's right.
Okay, fine. So that can be due to some Depends on, there are a lot of metabolic syndromes which can cause these type of odors. Okay, so there is something called maple syrup urine disease, which smells like maple syrup, which some is fishy odor, some odors are and they also the odor or the smell of the urine also depends on whatever you eat also. So you have to correlate the things like that. If he's due to something he's eating and not metabolizing properly, that could be a reason. So there are some of the metabolic syndromes which cause different odors, and we might have to check those. And also just do a routine urine check also, if there are any bacteria or fungus or anything. Yeah.
And do you think that there could be anything which is to be worried too much, or is it
if it's a
like
metabolic problem, it is worrisome because he's already 7 years old. Metabolic problem should be detected at birth actually, to get some benefit of treatment, because there is more of restriction of certain diets, certain proteins or certain carbohydrates or fats, depending upon which metabolic problem is there. So if you had been giving those things, then it would cause brain damage. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. So I believe we should go for a normal urine test as a regular one, right? First of all, and then we should
first do the regular urine test for fungal and bacteria, any sugars in that, all these things, and then you should go for a metabolic test, metabolic urine or neurometabolic profile.
All right, ma'am. All right, ma'am. Thank you kindly, ma'am. Thank you. I really thank you all and the organizers and you for kindly answering our questions. Really appreciate you, all of you a lot. Thank you very much.